Luke Inman, Arif Hasan, ColdOmaha.com, back again down in Mankato for 2016 Vikings training camp. Day one, no pads on, just the shells. Pretty vanilla, as to expected. Let's start with the depth chart. Anything that surprised you at all with the depth chart when we came out for the morning walkthroughs?
I don't know if anything was surprising, but there was definitely a couple of notable things, especially as we learned throughout the walkthrough that, players like Mike Harris were going to be on the PUP list. Brandon Fusco starting at right guard, it seems like, for the moment, I don't know if there's a better alternative for him with Mike Harris out. Obviously, with Phil Lodeholt retired, Andre Smith at the right tackle position, those positions got a lot of clarity really quickly, and that's on the offensive side of the ball. We also saw Charles Johnson starting at first wide receiver, which we had heard was happening throughout OTAs and minicamp. So nothing new there, but on the defensive side of the ball, there are a couple of things worth noting.
Yeah, you mentioned the defensive side of the ball, specifically the second team. I think the first team's kind of set in stone. Second team linebacker, specifically Audie Cole in the middle, Edmund Robinson and Lamore on the outside. In the nickel, they bumped out Edmund Robinson and kept Audie Cole and Lamore. Third team surprised me a little bit. A guy I've been talking about all offseason is going to have a big battle and a long hill to climb upwards. Scott Crichton, interesting to see that they moved him inside to the 3 technique at the defensive tackle. Moving along, though, the safeties, they're going to rotate these suckers in and out, it seems like, all day long. They started with Sendejo, but it seemed like everybody got a little bit of the action, a little bit of the pie. Any one of those guys, from Anthony Harris to Antoine Exum to Jaron Kearse, any of those guys stand out for you?
Sure. Obviously, Jaron Kearse stood out to me. He's the tallest defensive back by far.
Looks like a created guy on Madden almost.
Yeah, right.
Just insane.
It's just out of control. They had him play receiver when he was scrimmaging against the first team defense. He did a pretty good job there too. The first team was pretty set in stone. The people that you expected: Chad Green with the will linebacker spot, B-Rob at the left defensive end spot. Maybe the only spots that were really up for grabs besides that safety spot. And you said Andrew Sendejo, the person that we expected to be the starting safety, took that first rep with the first team. We saw a lot of rotation in the second and third team for those safeties. Initially, Anton Exum was playing alongside Michael Griffin, but they did eventually, throughout the walkthrough, rotate Anthony Harrison, and he's the guy that maybe I want to watch the most because he seemed the most assignment sound last year out of all of the other safeties aside from Harrison Smith, and I think he's got maybe the most upside. He looks a little bit bigger this year to me. I don't know about you, but he came into camp last year 186 pounds, so he had a lot of growth ahead of him before he could be a hard-hitting safety. 186
pounds soaking wet. I think you're giving him some credit there. He definitely did look like he filled out, and I think to begin the season, I think right now we're going to see a lot of Andrew Sendejo, but I think Zimmer just likes the fact that mentally Sendejo has this playbook down, but physically, as you mentioned, I think a guy like Anthony Harris has much more upside, as we saw in the Arizona Cardinal game, the Thursday night game last year. Offensively, interesting during the walkthroughs and the afternoon practice. You mentioned Charles Johnson on the outside, Adam Thielen, the other number
we
two
saw
on the
a lot
outside.
of him with the first team,
But where's Stephon Diggs? He's on the inside. Looks like they're going to want to use Diggs a lot in the slot. I would expect, specifically on third down. What did you see or what did you like out of that package?
No, it looked pretty versatile, and also, this is a package that they also, when McKinnon was on the field, they had McKinnon split, so you had a 3-by-1 set with McKinnon and Diggs in the slot, along with Charles Johnson on the outside, Adam Thielen on the outside. And what's great about this is actually you can do a lot of motioning because Adam Thielen has a lot of experience on the inside in the slot as well. Diggs has a lot of experience, of course, on the outside as a starting receiver in a 2-receiver set. So I like the versatility that you have. I like that you can motion people in and out of certain formations because they all have experience sort of everywhere along the line. And I think we're going to see more of that what's called the 11 personnel set with 3 wide receivers. It was a favorite of Norv's, but the Vikings used it a little bit less often than most of the other teams around the league. And I think as we see this receiver depth sort of move forward, we're going to see a lot of opportunities, not just for Thielen, obviously Laquan Treadwell as well, who right now is with the second team. We could see him even throughout the course of camp take a lot of first-team reps.
Yeah, you didn't see that a lot last year because of the power run, the physical nature, and the running game. And just comparing day one from last year and the year before with Norv Turner, it seems like the passing game was a big priority today, even just in day one. And a lot of different looks, a lot of reps for all three quarterbacks out there today. It seems like they kind of know what they're getting in the running game. They want to start to open some things up now in the passing game. Let's cut to it. Afternoon practice, a lot of reps taking place. get to some winners and losers. Let's start with the winners. Offensively, 2 guys jumped out. Rookies from last year just really puts an exclamation point on that draft class Rick Spielman had. Stephon Diggs looked sharp, Jerick McKinnon, and Michael Pruitt. All 3, I thought, looked explosive in their roles, and anytime they touched the ball, they just looked electric with the ball in their hands.
For sure. And I think maybe not the biggest winner, but the most important winner of the day, probably Teddy Bridgewater.
No doubt.
I thought he looked great.
No doubt.
He had a couple of errant passes, but far fewer than I think we've seen in previous camps. Remember, it was overthrow city for a while there last year. He had maybe 2 bad deep throws along with a bunch of other really good deep throws, which they had a lot of those today, which is kind of unusual.
Tough to go all in on just one day, but I think even with the missed throws, the misfires, you're just happy that Norv and Teddy are just starting to open the ball up a little bit more.
No, for sure.
Throw the ball downfield. Teddy's always been pretty sharp in the short and intermediate routes, but just starting to get the kinks out early in camp and continue to get better. That's the way to do it. Defensively, Adi Cole made a hell of a one-handed interception. And I think he kind of stuck out because just like always, the Adi Cole, kind of like the Marcus Sherrills of the group at linebacker, a guy that you think is going to get cut every year, always finds a way to make the team. Started out hot today.
I thought he started out hot. It should be said, the person who threw the pass was an assistant defensive coach. It wasn't a quarterback. But, it took some pretty incredible athletic ability that Adi Cole is not usually known for having. He didn't test very athletic. He didn't look very athletic at, North Carolina State. But we've seen a lot of interceptions from him in the preseason. When he's been on the field for Minnesota, especially that Chicago game at the end of that year, he's had some pretty athletic and some pretty good plays. So this is maybe an Adi Cole that I don't think even the staff expected to see. It'll be hard for Kentrell Brothers, who's taking 13 snaps in linebacker, to take his spot. And it'll be interesting to see how the bottom of the linebacker group plays out, because you can't carry 7 or 8 or 9.
No doubt that's going to be one of the more intriguing battles going out through camp. That's linebacker. And Kentrell Brothers, I think, when you look at his pedigree at the SEC in Missouri, a tackling machine. I think he's going to have to stand out on special teams, be a special teams ace, which I would expect he would kind of flourish in that role.
Right, and I saw some first-team snaps for him along with the punt unit.
Yes.
So it seems like that's where they want to put him.
Yeah, 152 tackles, led the SEC last year in tackles, so a tackling machine, a little bit undersized. For every winner, there's got to be a loser. My guy, took a baby step backwards compared to expectations last year. Today looked not a half a step slow, a full step slow on pretty much every route ran. It was Xavier Rhodes. Charles Johnson got the best of him on a double move right to start out the 11 drills at the afternoon practice. And then it seemed like after that he kept kind of cheating deep, and they just really picked him apart on the underneath routes.
Yeah, no, for sure. Charles Johnson did a number on him, but after that, you're right, a couple of other receivers took advantage of it. I saw Thielen take advantage of it. I saw Laquan Treadwell take advantage of it. And normally, if you hear that Laquan Treadwell is doing well against Xavier Rhodes, that's probably a positive sign.
Right.
But I think today it was more about Xavier Rhodes struggling to close underneath and work through. I think a lot of it was just his frustration. He even took credit for a Charles Johnson drop, I think just so he could pump himself up. Besides that, I think a big loser, probably Scott Crichton. Maybe not for any play that we saw. I didn't try to evaluate the offensive or defensive line play without pads. But you see Scott Crichton with the third team, with Justin Trateau with the second team. I think, the defensive tackle thing is probably not going to be that important. That was one of the things he was supposed to be good at coming out of the draft. That might have been a nickel set that we saw him in that defensive tackle set. But, if he's competing with Zach Moore for that third defensive end spot, he's on really thin ice.
No doubt. I think that was one of the guys all offseason that everybody kind of forgot about for a third-round pick, that Spielman usually nails those day 2 picks. He's kind of got lost in the shuffle. A lot
of people called him a steal then, too. Not just very athletic, but very well regarded at Oregon State.
Yeah, like you said, skating on thin ice as is. Tomorrow, what we're looking for, not on the field, surprisingly it's off the field, it's the update status of Cordero Patterson, who went down after making a beautiful catch over Jabari Price on the left sideline, deep downfield, and he just fell on that, it seemed like wrist awkwardly. For sure, probably something with the arm, it seems. Some people seem to think on the sideline, maybe he just got the wind knocked out of him. But we'll see. I'm sure Norv Turner...
We didn't see him come back. That's It's pretty alarming.
He left with Sugarman, went to the locker room, didn't come back. That was about middle way through practice. They shut him down. And again, maybe looking at some x-rays, unfortunately. We'll see just how bad that got tomorrow. After walkthrough, Norv Turner is on deck to speak at the press conference. I'm sure that'll be one of the first questions. For ColdOmaha.com, Arif Hasan, Luke Inman, down from Mankato, signing out.